Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book-loving, notebook-hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology and leading literate lives. We talk all things books and reading and notebooks and writing, mixed in with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. You can expect regular weekly episodes focused on 3 books you need to know about on a bookish theme and how to bring those themes to life in our actual lives too. You can also expect author interviews, notebooking inspiration, and topics to help us grow through what we go through and take inspired action to make our lives better. So grab a notebook and your TBR list and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, your host, here with today's monthly Literate Love episode. As you know, on the last day of every month, I talk about what I've been reading, writing, learning, and loving in hopes that it inspires some literate love in your own life. And I love when the last day of the month actually lands on a Tuesday, because it makes it feel like this episode was meant to be for that month. So if you listen to the past couple of episodes, or if you are in my Get Literate Patreon group, you know that for the month of April, I have been exploring and indulging the theme of obaitori. Obaitori is a Japanese concept that means we all bloom in our own ways and in our own time. So it mirrors the actual blooming of trees in the springtime. And it shows that just like trees bloom in different ways and in different speeds and in different spaces, so do we. And the idea is that we bloom in our own time, in our own way, but we also do not compare ourselves to other people's blooming. Trees don't decide to bloom because the tree next to it bloomed first. Trees don't decide to change their bloom's colors because the tree across the way looks brighter and prettier. No, they just bloom exactly as they were meant to be. And so this concept of obaitori is embracing that in us as humans, that we are what we are what we are supposed to be, and we all bloom at our own pace in our own way, and that's brilliant. I just love that concept. I also love saying obaitori over and over and over again. But basically for me, obaitori meant that I wanted to leave April better than when I started it. And that better can mean a lot of different things. Sure, it could mean my reading and writing life. But if you think about your own life, maybe it's your professional life, your personal life, your relationships, your hobbies, your meal plan, your health and wellness, whatever that is. I think that's really my ultimate goal, is to just leave the month better than when I started it. And I feel like I have hit the mark in some areas of my life in April, and in other areas, maybe not so much. But that is life, right? So it just gives us something to do and something to think about inside of the next month. But before we get to May, we first need to celebrate April. And so in this episode, I wanted to give you a look into what I have read, written, learned, and loved, in hopes, of course, that it inspires your own literate life. So let's start with reading. Have I got a book for you to start off with? I love all things Beth Kempton, and I have talked about Beth on this podcast before. And happily, she's going to be coming on to the Get Literate podcast in the fall to talk about this new book. I can hardly contain my excitement over it. I'll be counting the days down. But her newest book just released across the pond. It is called Kokoro, Japanese Wisdom for a Life Well Lived. Now, if you know Beth Kempton, you know that she has a beautiful style of personal development writing. She has written Wabi Sabi, She has written The Way of the Fearless Writer. She has courses on doing what you love for life. She has a beautiful philosophy around her work. And so I could not wait to get my hands on Kokoro. In fact, I ordered it from a bookstore in her home country just so that I could get it first. It isn't releasing until later in the year for the United States, but if you did what I did and you had them mail it to you and you waited patiently, then you got it a whole lot earlier. And I'm here to tell you that I think you should do that. I think you should go on to Blackwell's bookstore in the UK and you should order Kokoro. This, I think, hands down, is Beth's most wonderful work. But I also think it's because I needed it right now. So this is a book that celebrates all of the philosophies that she has come to embrace, but it particularly talks about what it means to be human, and especially what it means to be human in midlife, because that is where Beth is. And in the book, she outlines these principles of Kokoro that she thinks could guide a life well lived. Now, I won't tell you what those principles are because I think you need to find them out for yourself, but they are principles that will set you on a journey. I have never written in my notebook in response to a book as much as I have to Kokoro. There are prompts at the end of each chapter, 3 notebook invitations. And there are notebook invitations in a lot of the books I read, but I don't always use them. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, excuse me. But in this book, I have written to every single one. And in every single one, I have had some sort of aha moment that has made me get out the highlighter or the sticky notes and flag it in my notebook as something really, really important. But better yet, I love this book because of its size. It is not your traditional sized book. It's a little bit smaller. It's kind of like it's not a square, but it's not a tall rectangle either. It fits in the palm of your hand. It's this light blue color. It has this linen hardcover. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautiful to read, and it is just sparking so much reflection. If you want a sneak peek into this book, you can head to my Patreon group. It's getliterate.co. You can also click the link in the show notes. But I read the opening section of Kokoro as part of my First Chapter Friday. So every Friday, I do a First Chapter Friday reading for adults. These are adult books that you might want to read. And I think if you listened to me read that opening section of Kokoro, that you will want to pick it up. I think it's going to be my most recommended personal development book for a long while. So that's Kokoro by Beth Kempton. Now, up next is another nonfiction book. I definitely had a nonfiction theme this month. And this book is one that just went straight to my heart, and you're going to know why. That book is Bibliotherapy: The Healing Power of Reading by Bijal Shah. Now, I had Bijal on the podcast back in January. So if you want to listen to her talk about this book before it comes out, then you can head back to the very first episode of the year. This book was like a warm hug for someone who loves reading the way I do. And in my review, I said, if reading is like breathing in and writing is like breathing out, then this book is the kind of breath work we need to soothe our souls. Pam Allen's quote about breathing in and breathing out just resonated with me on almost every single page of reading this book. It is a book about the power of a reading life. It's filled with Bijal's research and the science behind why reading is so important. It also has real life examples of how people literally change their lives by reading specific books and writing in specific ways in her notebook. And Bijal is the one at the helm, telling us about this practice, telling us about the ways we can read, the ways we can write. And then the entire second half of the book are book recommendations based on what we need. I call them book apothecaries. Bijal calls them book prescriptions. And basically, her book is a prescription for a better tomorrow through reading and writing. As someone who loves to read and write, who knows firsthand the power that reading can have both on our physical state and our mental well-being multiple times in my life, this book just felt like a trusted guide. It felt like a friend to help me deepen my exploration into this field. Now, I am not a therapist. So when I approach reading to make life better, I approach it from a different lens than Bijal does. Bijal is an actual therapist who uses books in combination with her therapy. So to get the perspective of a therapist in this work and combine it with my perspective as a facilitator and as a person who does this kind of therapy in her own life on her own, I just loved it. I just loved it. I've got an entire stack of books that I added to my TBR. I have new ways to notebook based on the books I read and kind of change things up a bit to get the most messages out of the books that I can. And I just have this greater sense of hope that these things that I love to do, reading and writing, really can partner together to make a better tomorrow for all of us. Now, related to that, if you were on my email list, you saw my celebration. If you are on my Instagram and my Facebook, you saw my celebration too. Because I am not a therapist, I do not tend to say the words bibliotherapy and bibliotherapist. I don't want to mislead people into what I do. So instead, I made up two new words, bookology and bookologist. So in my made-up world, bookology is the study of books and reading, notebooks and writing, blended with mindfulness and creativity to make life better. That's what we do here. A bookologist is someone who has great knowledge and love of books and notebooks and puts that love together to facilitate bookish and notebookish experiences for others, me. So while we have different terms, Bijal and I are definitely on the same page. And my celebration was that those words, bookology and bookologist, they are officially recognized by the United States. I have a brand new registered word, bookology, and a brand new registered role, bookologist, that now I can put out into the world. So it was so exciting, and it was so excited to be reading Bibliotherapy by Bijal Shah when I got that news. So if you love reading and you really want to dive into the science behind why it makes life better, like I do, then Bibliotherapy is the book for you. And by the way, we are meeting inside my Get Literate Patreon community because there are so many of us that wanted to read this book that we're doing a bonus book club around it, and it is not too late to join. Now, book 3 is completely different than the first two, and oh my goodness, it's a wonderful. This is a very short 88-page epistolary novel. And it gives us an in-depth look inside two marriages gone wrong. It is told completely through the letters written back and forth from Carrie and David. And they slowly, in those letters, reveal the devastation that their cheating spouses have created. Yes, Carrie and David, their husband and wife, are cheating with each other. Carrie finds out, writes David. David writes back, and on we go. These exchanges are so heartfelt, and it is just going to reach out and grab your heart based on whatever couple you are relating to and just get you. It is so good. I could not predict the ending. I thought I could, but I did not. It was different than I booked and different than I thought. And it's just a really short book that you could probably read in one sitting that is going to literally take you out of your own life and pluck you into this one. There's something about reading the letters that makes it so deeply personal that you really do just kind of block out your own life until you figure out what Carrie and David are going to do. And, warning, it does make you take a microscope to your own relationships, which is interesting. I did not want this book to end. I desperately hope that there will be a sequel in the future. I loved it. That's Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So those are 3 books that I wanted to share with you based on my reading life in April. And now it's time to switch to my writing life. And I am really happy to say that I killed it in writing this month. I really did. Some months are better than others, but this month I would call myself a morning pages machine. I got into a rhythm. I switched up my morning routine just a little bit to give my writing a little bit more priority. I gave myself more permission to do this work. And I was reading books like Kokoro that just were sending me straight to my notebook. And I really did notice that on the days I started my morning with writing, I felt better. My days went better. I felt like I got something accomplished that was important to me right away. And I felt like I was learning things about myself that was showing up on the page that was just helping the rest of the day go better. It was helping me make better choices, helping me figure things out. It really was such a good reflective tool. And I think I'm going to need another morning page notebook by the time mid-May, if not sooner, rolls around, which is always a wonderful treat. By the way, my preferred notebook for morning pages is a moleskin. It is a soft cover moleskin that I insert into my yellow leather wrap. And so my morning page notebook always looks the same. It is always there. It is reliable. It is trusty. It doesn't change. But the inserts of the notebooks do. So if you ever need notebook recommendations, you know where to find me. Now, I also started writing. I mentioned on the podcast that I wanted to start tinkering around with a nonfiction picture book, and I'm happy to say that I have. I've started researching and collecting information and drafting and imagining and just doing some fun things around it. I'm not going to give you the particulars yet, but just being able to say that I've started writing a picture book, whether a picture book actually comes out of it or not, it just feels good. I really haven't told anybody in my immediate family world, well, of course, unless they're listening now, that I am actively writing a picture book, and I haven't given any details of what that is. But there is something to be said about putting it out there. And so I wanted to put it out there that that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm working on. And it's partly because I have been so incredibly inspired by the authors that I've been meeting on my other podcast, Kidlit Love. I've always said that book people are the best people, but there is something special about children's literature authors. When you see them talk about their books, when you see them light up, when they talk about why they write for kids, it's amazing. And every single one of them is so supportive of each other, of the industry, and even of me. I've had so many wonderful conversations when I stop recording where they ask me, "Hey, what book are you working on? You love kids' books so much. Why aren't you writing one?" And it's those comments, those wonderful nudges from these wonderful people that made me realize, yeah, I really do want to try that. So putting it out into the universe, maybe I'll give you some details pretty soon, but I broke ground on my first nonfiction picture book. Now, what else have I been writing in April? Well, April was letter and card writing month. And if you listen to the previous episode with Tiny and Snail, this wonderful card making company, I ordered a bunch of beautiful cards to send out to people. And so I've sent some cards, I've sent some emails, and I've even sent some text. So I really broadened the whole letter writing idea. But one thing I've done with more gusto in April is to send out more snail mail book postcards. So if you don't know about this, I love recommending books to everyone. And I have a place on my website. If you go to alitlife.com and you click Free Literate Love, you will find a place where you can request a personalized book introduction, well, personalized book recommendation from me. It's completely free. You just need to put your name, your email, your snail mail address, your physical mail address, and give me a little information about you and the books you like to read. And then I kind of work my magic and I pull out my trusty library card book postcards that Christy Zimmer of Guided Journal created for me. And I handwrite a book recommendation and a personalized message on the postcard, pop a stamp on it, and put it in the actual mail. I have done so many of these in April. I'm so grateful for the amount of people who are submitting requests for themselves, for their kids, and as surprises for their friends and family members. I have had so much fun with this that I even created a Google map and I drop pins into all the cities that I have sent postcards to. Now, I wish I did this in the very beginning. It was an idea that I didn't have until I started sending so many. But I am proud to say that my book postcards are international. They are going everywhere from Australia and Canada, everywhere across the United States, and even Bolivia. It's just amazing. So that is something that I have really had fun with. And you can see why I just feel so good about the amount of writing and the different kinds of writing that I have done this month. Now let's move on to what I've been learning. So you might remember me talking about my hope to do more meditation and mindful practices. And I know myself. The only way I will do something like that and explore something as big as that in my personal life is if I enroll myself in something that will then help me explain it to others as I learn, right? So you guys are kind of my accountability partners because when I learn something, I want to share it. So I did enroll in a mindfulness and meditation certification program. And let me tell you, even just from the opening sections, my mind is blown. There are two things that I want to share with you that have been aha moments for me so far on why meditation and mindfulness is so important. So, number one is a concept called adaptation energy. This is the kind of energy we need in order to keep up with ourselves on a daily basis. You might think of can't even say that word today, decision fatigue as a way to understand the concept. But basically, in a given day, we all have a certain amount of energy to deal with stuff. Some days we don't have to deal with a lot. Some days it feels like we are dealing with everything and anything over and over and over again. This idea of adaptation energy is that we only have a certain amount of energy to respond to the demands of the day. And so if we start to have days that are too chaotic, then we start to lose that energy. We might snap at people. We may get emotional. We may lose our cool. A whole bunch of things can happen when we run out of that energy to deal with the unexpected. So on days that we have that energy, right, those unexpected things, it's not really that big of a deal. We got this. It'll work out. No problem. I'll change gears. But on days where you don't have that energy or you used it all up on the stuff that happened in the day, it becomes a nightmare. One little tiny thing that is so insignificant could set you off, right? And then your whole day just comes tumbling down. The idea is that we need to build up our adaptation energy reserves. And guess what? One of the only ways to do that is through meditation. It's taking care of you and your body and your mind so that you have the energy, the reserves, the strength in order to respond to the unpredictability of life. When put that way, meditation doesn't really feel like an option, right? Because I don't know about you, but I run out of this kind of energy often. And so that was a really interesting little tidbit for me to learn and a really compelling rationale, excuse me, for why we should do more meditation. Now, related to that, I kind of had a eureka moment. So the really cool thing about this course is that while you are learning, there are opportunities every single week to participate in a live meditation with a teacher. And so I have been getting such a wide range of meditation practice, from breath work to kindness meditations to self-love meditations, all of them. And I was in one of those meditations when I had the eureka moment. So I am always the one, or have always been the one, to say, I can't meditate. I can't sit still that long. I can't have quiet thoughts for that long. Like I can't do that. And I know that many of you are saying that too, because I've heard from you in email of how difficult meditation and mindfulness is, and you're hoping that I'll share the secret. Here's the secret. We have meditation all wrong. Many of us. Many of us think that meditation is sitting quietly, focusing on the breath, and not having any thoughts at all. That's literally impossible. Something my teacher said was that you cannot not have thoughts, right? If we sit here and try really hard to make our heart stop beating for 10 minutes, we physically cannot do it. And we physically cannot make our brain stop thinking for 10 minutes. The only thing we can do is redirect it back where we want it to go. Boom, right? It's not about not having thoughts. It's about choosing what to think about. And every time your mind wanders, and it will, it's lovingly, gently, non-judgmentally bringing you back to what you wanted to focus on. That is teaching us to be in control of our mind. And the whole reason that we practice it in either a 5-minute increment, a 10-minute increment, or even longer if you've worked yourself up to that far, is so that we can employ that practice in real life. I just talked about adaptation energy, right? We have all had those moments where things go wrong or we overthink, right? Have you ever had that moment where you're just perseverating on something? You can't stop thinking about something you said, something you wish you said, a mistake you made, something that you're embarrassed about, something you're ashamed of. And you just keep replaying it over and over and over again and saying not so nice thoughts to yourself over and over and over again. We have all been there. If we employ this idea of meditation, we are trying to train ourselves to say, hey, I'm noticing you're having this really negative thought. And by the way, it's not serving you well. So let's think about something else. It was such a mind-blowing moment because we can all sit there for 5 minutes and redirect our thought to something that we want to think about. Mindfulness and meditation trains us to do that in small increments that build over time, so that later, when we're in our own life and we notice where our thoughts have gone, we can very gently pull them back. Man, that was a big one for me because I need this. I am an overthinker. I am a ruminator. I am all of those things. And if for 5 minutes I can do it in a meditation, then there's hope for me that I could take myself out of one of those spirals in real life too. And so that has just been a game changer for me. And it has really emphasized how important I think this practice is. And I've been tinkering with them. I've been trying them. And I do have some plans to think about meditation specifically for people who love to read and write, to make it an easier ask. And so I'll keep learning what I'll keep bringing to you what I am learning, but I just want you to hang on to that today. How's your adaptation energy? How might you fill it up? And what if meditation wasn't not having thoughts, but just learning how to redirect yours to a better one. How could that serve you? Okay, off the soapbox of meditation and moving on to what have I loved? I've got 3 things to share. One, if you are a gluten-free person like I am, then have I got a Substack for you. Liz Pruitt has a Substack called Have Your Cake, and it is a recipe wonderland for people who are gluten-free. These are decadent. These are so delicious and tasty, and they are recipes that I really would never have tried had I not seen them. Now, for the record, I haven't tried them all yet, but I have saved a lot of them, and they just look so yummy. This pineapple whip cake, that's the one I think I am going to try next. And no, I still didn't get my mixer, which I hope to do in April, but there's still time. I bought a whole lot of books instead. Number 2 that I love, it's another food theme. You need to find Sweet Ambs, AMBS, on either Facebook or Instagram. She is a cupcake decorator, a cookie decorator, actually. Maybe she does both. And she creates these wonderful fast forward motion reels of her doing her thing. And I can't stop watching them. I love the idea of cookie decorating and cupcake decorating, and I just get such a kick out of watching her bring these beautiful, beautiful, edible creations to life. And then lastly, the thing that I have truly loved this month is my mechanical pencil. I have done so much writing that I have really paid attention to the writing utensils I use, which ones I love the most, which ones feel the best, and which ones allow me to glide across the paper the best. I've got lots of joint issues in my hands that mean I need the perfect writing utensil to flow. And I have found that good old mechanical pencils do that for me. So I actually bought a bunch of all sorts of different sizes and thicknesses, and I have settled on one that I love. It is just a cheap pack of mechanical pencils from Walmart or Target or wherever you buy them. But what I found is that I like the slightly thicker mechanical pencil. So the lead itself is a little bit thicker and it glides across the page. And I was trying to think about why I loved it so much. And I was listening to, I was listening to a podcast. I believe it was Anne Lamott, who wrote Bird by Bird. And she said, there's just nothing that can replace the sound of a pencil as it glides across the paper. There's just something so sacred in that sound that connects you with writers before you, all the way up to hundreds of years ago when people were putting pencil to paper. And so it was just another reason to love using mechanical pencil. I know a lot of us use pens and gel pens and colored pens for notebooking, but for my morning page writing, it is a mechanical pencil all the way. So if you haven't tried them, I urge you to give it a shot and listen for that sound. I have to agree with her. That really, really is a good sound. So I've got 3 more quick things to share because on my monthly Literate Love printable that I fill out every month, I've got 3 prompts at the bottom: a lesson learned, something to hold on to, and an idea for next month. So lessons learned this month, I've got one big one. Writing makes everything better. Things to hold on to. This is a quote that I heard from Gretchen Rubin on her podcast this month that I loved. She said, when you're trying to make a decision about something, remember this: living things come first. Such a fun phrase to prioritize some of the things that we can get stressed over. Living things come first. And ideas for next month. Well, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I am going to start revising my restorative reading course. I'm going to do a kickoff launch in June to invite as many people as I can into my virtual restorative reading studio so that we can kick off a wonderful summer of reading and writing together. So I will be doing a lot of that work, a lot of the revising, and we'll start inviting everyone to consider joining me at the end of May. So there you have it, everyone. There is my literate love for April of 2024. I hope that it has given you the opportunity to think about your own literate life. I hope you added a couple of books to your TBR, started thinking about where you could add more writing and mindfulness and meditation into your days, and get out that mechanical pencil that might bring you some different joy as you write and listen for that really cool sound. So I will see you next week in the next episode of the Get Literate podcast. Thanks for listening and happy reading and writing, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. Plus, if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, bibliotherapy book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking challenges, live events, giveaways, and much, much more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. You can learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.